For that, we'll continue our team coverage with CBS 4's Brian Andrews. He joins us live from West Palm Beach, where the Urban League gathered to highlight what they call injustice and a call for social change. Brian?
Elliot, the march came to an end here at the Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Landmark Memorial, just a few miles north of the downtown area. Marchers say that they took to the streets today in memory of what happened in Ferguson and the injustice that they say happened in New York, and injustices everywhere that go unreported every day.
Hands up, don't shoot!
Marchers on the move.
Don't shoot!
Dozens joining a march organized by the Urban League of Palm Beach County, calling for an end to racism and for justice for those who've been wronged by the system.
Black and white together, we shall overcome.
It began with a rally near the giant sand sculpture on the Great Lawn in downtown. Some in the crowd from the Nation of Islam thought there could have been a better location chosen.
They should be on Henrietta Avenue. They should be on the avenues where black people are.
So you think the protest really should be more in the black community, not here in the center of West Palm Beach?
Correct.
Earlier, Urban League members waved signs at traffic on Flagler. End racism read one. Another, Black Lives Matter. Members of the Urban League also wore T-shirts with the messages equality for all and I can't breathe. This woman brought her 3 young children.
I'm here because I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired of what's going on.
Retired Palm Beach County Judge Edward Rogers, the county's first black judge, appointed by Reuben Askew back in 1973. We are thousands of miles away from Ferguson. We are a 3.5-hour flight away from New York City. So why West Palm Beach for this movement tonight?
Because West Palm Beach is in danger of being found in the same situation. And it's time we talked about it or did something about it before it happens.
The statue of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and the Urban League chose to end their march here because of this Dr. Martin Luther MLK Jr. quote, which is, "An injustice anywhere is an injustice everywhere." Live in West Palm Beach tonight, I'm Brian Andrews, CBS 4 News.
CBS 4's Brian Andrews joins us in the studio with this terrifying ordeal. Brian.
Well, Erica and Rick, the turning point came 16 hours into the standoff when the hostage negotiator told his commanders that things were going south fast. Police move in with big guns and stun grenades as the hostages left inside the cafe run out 16 hours after it all began. And they were the lucky ones. 2 hostages were killed. A police officer shot in the face, but survived, taking out the gunman. It was the day terrorism arrived in the heart of Sydney. Imagine the horror experienced by the 17 captives, 5 of whom escaped early on during the standoff, running for their lives.
They're very brave people who, in many cases were just buying a cup of coffee and they got caught up in this dreadful affair.
The hostage taker identified as Manharon Moniz, an Iranian refugee and self-styled cleric with a lengthy criminal past. Police tried negotiating with him as he forced some of his captives to raise a black Sunni extremist flag in a window.
Hi everyone.
Australian media received a video in which a captive delivered the gunman's demands.
We had 3 specific requests and none of those have been met.
Look, you can probably hear the loud explosions behind me.
While some ran to safety when it was over, others, like this woman, were carried out, rushed to waiting ambulances.
I've counted at least 4 stretchers going that way so far.
Yeah, we can see that on the live shot there.
Someone was seen being dragged out of the cafe.
This was an isolated incident. It is an isolated incident. Do not let this sort of incident bring about any loss of confidence about working or visiting in our city. It was the act of an individual. This should never destroy or change the way of our life.
The gunman in Australia was considered a lone wolf. He had a history of run-ins with the Australian law, and also he was known for having problems with mental illness. I'm Brian Andrews, CBS 4 News.
Let's bring in CBS 4's Brian Andrews with the very latest. Brian.
Rick, he was a lone gunman who was taken out as police made an entry overnight into that Sydney coffee shop. An Australian police officer who was part of the entry team, he was shot in the face, but he survived.
It was a dramatic and deadly ending. Explosions and the eruption of gunfire as Australian police brought the standoff to an end.
They made the call because they believed that at that time, if they didn't enter, there would have been many more lives lost.
The remaining hostages inside the cafe running for their lives. Others had to be carried to safety. Some were rushed to the hospital with critical injuries.
We need to actually find out what's happened here and what's happened inside that cafe.
Throughout the day, hostages could be seen through the restaurant's window. Some were able to escape. Australian media received a video in which a captive delivered the gunman's demands.
We had 3 specific requests and
The gunman was identified as 50-year-old Manharoun Moniz, an Iranian refugee and self-described cleric. Police tried negotiating with him but say his motive wasn't clear, although early on in the siege, hostages were seen holding an Islamic flag.
In the past 24 hours, this city has been shaken by a tragedy that none of us could have ever imagined.
Australian authorities say this was an isolated incident, the work of a lone wolf. Brian Andrews, CBS 4 News.
CBS 4's Brian Andrews has the details from our newsroom. Brian.
Well, Erica, we are just getting the disturbing details of what happened about this time last night on Espanola Way, about a block off of Collins on South Beach. Police say Bobby Lee Bryant has been arrested. This is his mugshot. He's charged with raping a mentally challenged woman, presumed to be homeless, who was passed out on the sidewalk at Espanola Way. The police report says he and a friend, Derek Barnes, who's also charged in this case, dragged that woman to another corner where Bryant had his way with her while Barnes stood watch, allegedly telling passersby to pay no mind to what was going on behind him. Police say the victim appears to suffer from mental illness and told responding officers that she was 12 years old. Right now, we have CBS News reporter Travell Island on Miami Beach working the story, and we will check in with him at 6 o'clock tonight. For now in the newsroom, I'm Brian Andrews, CBS 4 News.
CBS 4's Brian Andrews is back with us again with the details.
Erica, the gunman was out on bail. He was charged as an accessory to the murder of his ex-wife, charged with rape in another case, and given community service for sending offensive letters to the families of Australian soldiers who were killed in Afghanistan.
Across Sydney, flags flew at half-staff, a symbol of Australia's support for the victims. A shrine of flowers has grown in size. Australia's Prime Minister and his wife adding to the memorial, not too far from the cafe where the gunman and 2 hostages died.
And is a travesty of a true and just state.
U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry in London talking about the tragedy in Sydney.
So we know in a very personal way what our ally Australia is going through at this very moment. And we grieve with Australia.
A lone gunman held hostages at the cafe for more than 16 hours. Several escaped during the standoff. After hearing gunfire, police stormed in, killing Manharoun Moniz, an Iranian refugee with a history of violence. 2 hostages were also killed. The cafe's 34-year-old manager, who's being called a hero for reportedly grabbing the suspect's gun.
It's a testament to what people should be. He would always put his staff before anyone.
The other, 38-year-old mother and lawyer Katrina Dawson, who's said to have been shielding a pregnant friend when she was shot. The 50-year-old suspect was known to Australian law enforcement and had a criminal history and extremist views. He was free on bail after being charged as an accessory to his ex-wife's murder.
We're all outraged that this guy was on the street.
The godfather of Muniz murdered ex-wife lives in San Francisco.
You know, he took innocent life, a lot of innocent people. So a person like that does not have a chance to live in this world.
4 people were wounded as the siege came to an end. Tonight, 3 are still in the hospital in Sydney. I'm Brian Andrews, CBS 4 News.